Today you can't watch a film or read a book or really look at anything without running into Zionists and their hooks. There's Zionists everywhere, certainly among the Jews, but without them as well. It's everywhere you go. The phone you use, the film you watch, the soda you pop, the food you consume, the book you peruse. Every distraction is a reminder of destruction, and behind every mundane interaction is a massacre, and every casual connection makes you complicit as well. It's like waking up and discovering that you're an extra in a Nazi movie, one of those idiots walking around while better people are the walking dead. Once you see the Z's that keep us sleepwalking through everything, you can't unsee them. And to me, it's much deeper than Zionism. That's just the latest brand of colonialism, conveniently dumped on the Jews so whites can disavow the whole thing and play the good guys in movies again. The problem with Jews is their whiteness, not their Jewishness, which is still non-evil within Iran, for example. Whiteness, or Westernness, is the source of the whole thing. Thus, my beef is with Western media in general these days. I don't think it can be separated from Zionism, because then you're back to your regular scheduled programming, which was still colonialism. So Western movies, Western news, Western music, Western words, they're all Western, and what does Western mean? It means Europeans stretching westwards in genocidal violence until they envelop the entire world with what Samuel Huntington called superior violence. Israel is merely a microcosm of the cataclysm Western culture is and always has been. So Israel is right to say that they're defending Western civilization. And we're wrong to think that the indefensibleness of these actions is limited to Israel alone. The whole Western culture is rotten, and I grew up in it. It makes me want to throw up now that I see it. This shit is not entertaining anymore. All the lies about saving the world from the people who destroy it, and all the jokes about the better people they ruined. If the ruins of Gaza haven't opened your eyes to this, you're not looking. But if you do look, it's really hard to be pleasant company at a movie or to share a book recommendation, because it's all ruined.
I watched World War Z the other day randomly. It was just on and I sat down and watched it. That film is straight Israeli propaganda. It's fucking crazy. I haven't seen it since it came out in like 2014 or whenever it was, and I've not really thought about it since, but my mum put it on and we were having dinner and I was like, fuck it, I'll watch this. It gets like halfway through that film, Brad Pitt's like, we have to go to the safest place on earth, Israel. And I was like, oh my god. And then they fucking go to Jerusalem, and the reason that Jerusalem is like the safest place like on the planet at the moment, and Israel also has like information that could lead to like a cure, of course they do, but it's because they've built even bigger walls around Jerusalem because they knew the zombie apocalypse was coming because of the Arab war. Like there's literally a scene where like one of the guys is explaining like, yeah, because when the Arabs attacked, that made us realize that there's going to be a zombie invasion one day. And I was like, what the fuck are we doing?
Before October 1973, we saw Arab troop movements, and we unanimously agreed they didn't pose a threat. Well, a month later, the Arab attack almost drove us into the sea. So we decided to make a change.
They even make a point of showing that they've let the Palestinians in. There's like a small group of like Palestinians with their little flags and stuff. And Brad Pitt points it out and he's like, you're letting people in? And then the Israeli guy's like, well, more people in here is less zombies out there.
He said at Jerusalem Salvation Gates, 2 of 10 portals to the security perimeter into fortified Israel. You're letting people in. Every human being we save is one less zombie to fight.
Like, well, less zombies out there, I guess. Like, fucking hell, man. And then just, to be fair, I'm laughing, but because it's so insane, but it is actually a really gross depiction. Like, the fucking imagery of these giant walls around Jerusalem, and then all these, like, the World War Z depicts zombies like ants, like these little fucking insect, like... By the hundreds of thousands, these zombies like climb up the wall like rabid animals. And like geographically speaking, most of those zombies are Palestinians, even not even like metaphorically. This like wall is literally a bigger version of the apartheid wall in Jerusalem, which segregates the Palestinians from the Israelis. So like these zombies are Palestinians, and also metaphorically. Like, and then the thing that makes the zombies climb over the wall is that there's a Palestinian woman like on like a microphone, and the sound is like attracting the zombies. Even in this film, like they're framing Israel like the good guys and look, they're helping the Palestinians, but it's like egregious. Like no one can watch that and tell me that it isn't political.
It's just a power struggle, nothing mysterious.
Follow up?
Well, who wins in this game? And whose best interest is it to keep the kids fighting?
Right, like there's some all-powerful entity manipulating the entire population of Israel. There's a good thought process for you. It's more complex than that.
But if you disregard power...
That's not what I said. Maybe if you sat up straight for a minute, you could hear a little more clearly. They call on people. Israel is made up of over 6 million individuals, each with a unique view on the situation. You know something about a unique view of the situation, don't you?
I guess.
Because propaganda and the spreading of blatant, heinous, ridiculous lies can cause more damage than guns or bombs or any sort of weaponry.
Personally, if I'm in an alley with Osama, I'd rather he was armed with a blatant, heinous lie than an Uzi.
That's because you're an idiot.
You know, you didn't look scary when you came in here.
Anyway, who do you think was under the next turban?
Aladdin?
Yasser Arafat?
No, that's not a turban, that's a banoose.
Well, whatever it is, he could use a facial, or better yet, a chemical peel.
Nanny fine.
Wow, we're giving him the Gaza Strip. Would it kill him to take a shave and put on a little Paco Rabanne?
Does the name Maureen Whitworth ring a bell?
This former Israeli soldier has literally worked with the Department of Defense to create propaganda disguised as film. And now Gal Gadot is set to star in one of 2025's biggest releases. Gadot's casting in Disney's Snow White has caused quite a stir given her complete enmeshment in Israel's political and military systems. At the age of 18, Gadot won the Miss Israel pageant and represented Israel in the 2004 Miss Universe competition. By age 20, she was conscripted into the IOF, serving as a combat fitness instructor. In 2007, Gadot was in a Maxim photo shoot titled Women of the IDF. Gadot's career really took off with her portrayal of Wonder Woman, and Gadot's Wonder Woman 1984 was actually made in direct collaboration with the American military, with script approval from the US Department of Defense. She's so enmeshed with US and Israeli interests that her films have been banned in several Middle Eastern countries, including Lebanon, Kuwait, and Jordan. During the 2014 Gaza massacre, Gadot posted on Facebook, sharing a photo of herself praying with her daughter alongside a message of solidarity with Israeli soldiers. In 2021, Gadot called for peace but referred to Palestinians only as, quote, neighbors, making their subordination by Israel seem either invisible or accidental and not a choice of an occupying power. Then in 2023, she spearheaded the organizing of a screening of an Israeli propaganda film about October 7th. Years ago, Lebanese-American public figure Mia Khalifa dubbed Gadot Genocide Barbie, and her critique and that term resurfaced in 2024, alongside calls for a boycott of Disney's Snow White. Gadot represents an intentional strategy, using film to normalize and export militarized worldviews. The backlash against Snow White is newer and shows that audiences are beginning to question the implications of these kinds of casting choices.
You know, people really are out here exposing themselves, and we find out the truth about some people. Case in point, did not know Neil Druckmann was a whole Zionist. And that basically, The Last of Us Season 2 is a mirror of Israel and Palestine and what's happening. And that he puts Zionist themes in the game. Just, wow. Yeah. Definitely taking that off my watch list for next year. Well, whenever the fun comes back, I'm still not going to watch.
Is The Last of Us Part 2 Israeli propaganda? Yes, it is. I'm obviously not the first to bring up this discussion, but I think it's a very important discussion to have, especially right now, and especially considering I talk about The Last of Us on this account. I have been meaning to dive into this for a while. I want to make a couple videos on this because there is so many different aspects of it, and Neil Druckmann's Israeli perspective really does bleed into the entirety of The Last of Us, in the setting, the themes, the characters, the conclusion it reaches, what it has to say. But in this specific video, I want to look at the kind of overarching message and how the conclusion The Last of Us 2 reaches is a both sides solution, and how that is inherently problematic when looked through the perspective of the Palestine-Israel conflict. And before anyone sits there and starts going, oh, well, it's not that deep, or oh, it's not even a thing. Neil Druckmann, I'm pulling things from interviews Neil Druckmann has said himself. He has overtly said that The Last of Us is directly inspired by very specific events like the 2000 Ramallah lynching. Gilad Shalit prisoner exchange he's overtly said several times that was the inspiration for part one. So these are direct quotes from Neil Druckmann. So whether people want to engage with it in that way or not, it is a fact that The Last of Us 2 is inherently directly inspired by Israeli politics. To start off, I want to read a couple excerpts from the Vice article titled "The Not So Hidden Israeli Politics of The Last of Us Part 2. If you've not read this article yet, go read it. A lot of people have spoke about this article before. It's fantastic. It was written way before October 7th. It was written just after the game came out in 2020. And it's written by an Israeli himself, Emmanuel Mayberg. Cycles of violence are a poor way to understand a conflict in a meaningful way, especially if one is interested in finding a solution. The United States, for example, hasn't been at war in Afghanistan for almost 20 years because it's trapped in a cycle of violence with the Taliban. It is deliberately choosing to engage with a problem in a way that perpetuates a conflict. Just as the fantasy of escaping violence by simply walking away from it is one that only those with the means to do so can entertain, the myth of the cycle of violence is one that benefits the side that can survive the status quo. The Last of Us is constantly framing violence as a choice, right? Every party, every character, every group is constantly deciding to make these violent choices. Even at the end of the first game, do you think Joel was right? Do you think Joel wasn't right? Do you think Abby's right? Do you think Ellie's right? Do you think the scars are right? It's always a both sides, look at both perspectives. When looked at through the frame of Palestine and Israel, Palestinians don't have a choice. There was no choice in the matter. If they stop fighting, the same thing happens. The status quo is one that benefits Israel because they have occupied and oppressed the Palestinians. So to frame every conflict in The Last of Us as a choice that you can stop making and everyone will benefit is one that benefits the Israeli perspective, because this is not a both sides issue. If the Palestinians put down their weapons and walk away or try a diplomatic solution, as they have tried many a time, nothing will change. They will still be starved. They will still be oppressed. They will still be arrested at checkpoints. They will still be kidnapped. And children will still be tried in military courts. Neil Druckmann himself has stated that The Last of Us Part 2 is directly inspired by the feeling he had after watching the footage of the 2000 Ramallah lynching of 2 Israeli soldiers, in which at the start of the Second Intifada, a group of Palestinians killed and lynched 2 Israeli soldiers. This comes after 100 Palestinian protesters had been murdered the months before that. But Neil Druckmann misses out that context and focuses purely on the way he felt when he saw that video, where he says, and I quote, "Oh man, if I could just push a button and kill all these people that committed this horrible act, I would make them feel the same pain that they inflicted on these people." He has stated since that he regrets that and he's ashamed of the way he felt when he watched that video. But he still treats it as this universal feeling of hate that anyone and everyone would feel when they watch that video. However, in this article, Emmanuel, who again is also Israeli and grew up in Israel, describes this is not a universal feeling as much as a learned way of seeing the world. There are many other ways to react to that video: compassion for the victims, compassion for the killers, questioning why these soldiers had to drive to the West Bank in the first place, questioning what would drive a mob to this kind of violence. Revenge and hate is just one option. He ends the article by saying, "It's clearly coming from an emotionally authentic and self-examining place. The trouble with it, and the reason that Ellie's journey ultimately feels nonsensical, is that it begins from a place that accepts intense hate that is universal as a fact of life, rather than examining where and why this behavior is learned." Critically, by not asking these questions and by making its point of view as being even-handed, it perpetuates the very cycles of violence it's supposedly so troubled by. And if that doesn't encapsulate the whole Israeli perspective, I don't know what else does. You cannot act surprised when you oppress and occupy an entire people and you take their land and you control their food and their electricity and you take their children as military prisoners and then act surprised when they bite back.
Why did early Jewish filmmakers in Hollywood avoid talking about Israel, and how did that dynamic change? For much of Hollywood's early history, Jewish filmmakers and studio executives actually distanced themselves from Zionism and discussions about Israel. Prominent Jewish figures in the industry like Louis B. Mayer of MGM or Harry Cohn of Columbia Pictures expressed skepticism or outright opposition to Zionism. Supporting Zionism was seen as politically risky at the time, and as a result, Hollywood avoided portraying Israel or Jewish nationalism on screen. That dynamic began to shift with the release release of what's now considered a Hollywood classic film, Exodus, in 1960. Exodus, starring Paul Newman, was created and produced in collaboration with the Israeli government. The film was highly successful. In the years that followed, Hollywood entered what has been called the romantic phase with Israel. Films like Cast a Giant Shadow, released in 1966 and starring Kirk Douglas, helped to popularize and normalize Israel's story in mainstream culture. However, after the controversial 1982 Lebanon War, public perception shifted, and Hollywood portrayals of Israel became more negative, often portraying Israelis as spies or aggressors. 1997 saw the launch of the Masterclass program, a collaboration between the LA Federation's entertainment division and the Jewish Agency for Israel. The initiative brought prominent Hollywood figures to Israel to mentor aspiring Israeli creatives. Over 15 years, this program helped produce a new wave of Israeli filmmakers who found success in Hollywood. Meanwhile, Israeli media companies like Keshet International began to establish a strong presence in Hollywood. In this period, several films or TV shows emerged that portrayed Israel in a positive light, like Munich, which follows the Israeli government's response to the 1972 Munich Olympics attack, The Debt, which tells the story of Mossad agents hunting a Nazi war criminal, Fauda, which focuses on Palestine and Israel from the perspective of an undercover Israeli unit, Operation Finale, which again follows Mossad agents as they capture Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann, and The Red Sea Diving Resort, which portrays a Mossad operation to rescue Ethiopian Jews and bring them to Israel. While we're now used to seeing these stories, they actually reflect a deep intentional partnership between Hollywood and Israel.